So Zoe, tell me about the charity. How did it come about and why?
So it came into being because we've sadly lost 5 babies ourselves. So we lost 3 children prior to having our daughter, who's now 8. And then we lost another 2 children before our next little girl arrived, who's now 6. So we've been there. We've gone through that great bereavement of losing children. So we knew a charity like this was needed. Our consultant actually told us there isn't support out there, so don't go looking. So we knew there was something needed because there was nothing there for when we needed it. We needed support outside our family and friends because they too were affected by the losses. So you're reaching out for support from people who are also in mourning. So we needed an organisation. So because of that, we knew a charity was needed. But we also knew we were able to provide that support because of our professional backgrounds through business. But also I trained as a counsellor, weirdly, because my mum's a therapist. And so I trained as a counsellor as a hobby, never thinking I'd need it professionally. Our background is marketing and PR and events, so that followed through naturally to found a charity and an organisation. So we saw there was a need, we knew we could fulfil it, so that's why we launched it. Did we expect it to become what it is today? No. Did we think it could? Absolutely. But we didn't know the need was so great. We didn't know the stats were so huge, and nothing could have predicted us to become one of the leading support organisations within 6 weeks. And nothing could have prepared me for sitting here today, 5 years on, that we're supporting over 50,000 people a week. The fact that our website has over 650,000 hits a month. Nothing could have prepared us for that. Am I surprised though? No, because I know what a big issue this is and I know how many people are suffering. And because we offer support for people who have lost recently or historically, that's a lot of people who need support. But we're prepared to offer it. And I'm really glad that we're there to offer it now. So people don't need to go searching like we did and find nothing. Now they can go searching and they find us being there. And in that moment of need, to know somebody's at the end of a phone, somebody's at the end of social media, and they can reach out and find that support means everything in your darkest hour.
Baby loss is a real taboo, isn't it? And always has been. Why is that?
I think it's because people are so scared of losing themselves often. Also, the 12-week rule obviously has been in place for so long, where people are told don't tell anybody you're pregnant until after 12 weeks. And that reinforces don't tell us if you do lose a baby. Otherwise, what's the problem in telling anybody you're pregnant straight away? So that has definitely made the stigma worse in the fact of people talking about loss because they feel society's telling them not to.
What are some of the wrong perceptions about baby loss?
I think the fact that people view it as a medical incident rather than an emotional loss and a big bereavement. People often will treat it as just a physical thing that a woman goes through rather than the loss of a life. Also, the fact that it's just a woman's issue. We supported about 30% men probably, and that shocks a lot of people. They expect that we would only support women and that this is only an issue that affects women, but it doesn't. It affects couples and it affects the whole wider family. So grandfathers, uncles, you name it. We support men who are going through this subject.
And again, this is your experience, isn't it?
Absolutely. Myself and Andy, we both suffered exactly the same. It wasn't more me, it was equally the same for both of us. And we see that every day with the organisation. Also the fact that people think that grief connected to baby loss is very short-lived, the fact that you're over it within a couple of weeks. And again, that's far from the truth.
What are the issues that people face post-baby loss that perhaps they wouldn't have expected?
Probably repercussions health-wise, the fact that often we see people who have health conditions because they haven't fully been given permission to grieve. So it can have effects on mental health and also physical health. Also the effect on relationships and marriages. Around 70% of marriages and relationships break down following baby loss. That's a huge statistic. It's one of the number one reasons for marriage breakdown in Britain, and I don't think that's talked about enough. Also, the cost to people's financially, really. So many people lose their jobs. Bereavement leave isn't offered to people who are going through baby loss. And so often it has repercussions on their employment, and that has a knock-on effect of how they're going to pay the bills. So I think all of those things are never considered as part of the issue with baby loss, but they very much are.
This might be a good point to talk about what you actually mean by baby loss, because it isn't always the loss of a baby that was once living, is it? You're talking about right back to very early miscarriage.
Absolutely, from the point someone finds out they're pregnant right the way through. So as an organisation, we support people who have lost in pregnancy at whatever stage, however early or late, through stillbirth, through neonatal loss, and right the way up to 4-year-olds we support people.
So what sort of services do you provide then at the charity?
We provide befriending, we provide counselling services. We also provide social media support, which is what most people want and need, which is that daily reassurance and that daily contact with our team to let them know that they're going to be okay, that they're going to survive this, that they're understood. Then we offer national and international services of remembrance where people can come together at cathedrals and abbeys and Methodist Central Hall in London, where we hold these remembrance services for people who haven't had a chance to say goodbye, or for people who want to actually remember a child they've lost even if they have had a funeral service. So that's a crucial part of what we do.
The services are in cathedrals, as you say, or abbeys, whatever. What if people aren't religious? Because it may not be a religion that they want to find.
Absolutely. And these services are for anybody of any faith or no faith, and that's really important. The only reason we use cathedrals is they're beautiful, historic venues, and venues that people feel comfortable going into because they're used for both secular and religious events. And for us as an organisation, the point of cathedrals was to say these babies truly matter. So they should be recognised in these really beautiful historic buildings and not just hidden away.
So tell me, what happens at your services?
It's a mixture of everything, but the first and most important thing is people are coming together, whether their loss was recently or historic. And that's so powerful in itself, to be sitting alongside people who just get it, where people often feel so alone and isolated and feel like they're the only person who's going through it. So the first part of the service is very much just looking around and seeing people sitting alongside you who just get it. So that's really important part. But then from the front, what we do is we have amazing music. We've got a great professional singing team who travel the world with us, where music is so powerful for many people, where they can't find the words themselves. Music can really do that. Then we have great acts of remembrance, candle lighting. We also have something that's totally unique to saying goodbye services, which is bell ringing, where people get an opportunity to ring a bell for every baby they've lost. And for many, they say that's the most powerful moment, where their baby's probably never had a voice, they've never heard it. But to hear those bells chiming all around the cathedral, knowing each one recognises a baby's life, is so powerful and just so beautiful.
And people of all ages come, don't they?
Totally. These services are for the whole family. So we have so many children and babies who attend, and grandparents, uncles, aunts, absolutely everybody is welcome to come along. The services are designed for the whole family, because this is not just an issue that couples deal with. The whole extended family is affected, and children are affected when they lose their brothers and sisters.
And tell me about the people who come to the services who maybe lost babies many decades ago.
Wow. For me, I guess they're the most moving stories, because it's people who have carried that grief for so long. When you have a 70 or 80-year-old or 90-year-old come along to the service whose life's basically been put on hold from the moment they've lost their child, that's quite hard to witness, but also incredibly moving when they say, finally, I've had an opportunity to recognise my baby, and that's what I've lived to do my whole life.
Many years ago, it was even less acknowledged than it is now, wasn't it? It was a stigma. It was something that people really avoided talking about at all costs.
They did indeed, and so often people will say to us, I don't know where my baby's buried. My baby died from a cot death even back then, and a midwife came in, took the baby. I never saw the baby again. It was never even mentioned again. And we hear stories like that daily. I mean, as an organisation, we support around 50,000 people a week. So you can imagine the quantity of stories we hear. And without fail, people who have lost over 30, 40 years ago have such harrowing tales to tell of being told to just get out of the bed, go home, try again.
And on the 15th of September, your first book, Saying Goodbye, comes out. Why did you feel the need to write the book now?
Well, I felt the need to write it because we were asked to write it and because people were really needing that resource. And I've actually got a copy hot off the press, which is here. And so the book is exactly what I needed. When we were going through loss, I couldn't find anything that actually gave me hope that I'd survive, but also as a daily resource that I needed. So the first half of the book is our story, but the second half is 90 days of support. So each day people can read it as it comes, day by day, so they don't feel alone anymore. That's my hope. So the first part of each day is basically talking about something I felt and I think that somebody else might be feeling right on that day. So it could be talking about feeling alone. And so the area will very much talk about feeling alone, going through baby loss. Then there's a task for the day, so people can do something active.
What sort of thing?
So it could be something like write a letter to the baby you've lost today, where you feel like you've been robbed of an opportunity to express that. So a really productive thing that will help them through that day. Or it could be find a song that really means something to you and just be in that moment and not fight that moment. And then there's a quote, which is something that I've written from my heart to the reader's heart, which I really trust and believe will make them feel less alone. Where something I really struggled with was feeling like I was the only person who was going through it. And to just make somebody not feel that, to make them know they're not crazy, that they're not the only person in the world who's going through it. That's what you need in that moment. And that's what I hope this book will do for people, that they'll treat it as a friend, that they'll feel like that they're not alone and that they can turn to it whenever they need it, whether that be in the morning, late at night, in the dark hour of that morning at 2 a.m, when you feel like you're the only person in the world sitting there going through it, that they can reach for this book. And I hope it will be something not only for them, but also a resource that they can give to other people. As a charity, we always ask, what can I give? What can I give to make somebody feel understood? And what can I give that is a sensitive gift, where flowers don't always seem appropriate, where I want them to know I get it. And that's what I've written this book in mind as well, that people can give it as a sensitive gift that shows that they care, that they love a person, and that they're not trying to make them just get better, that they're acknowledging their pain, that they're acknowledging that someone's lost a child. It's not a medical incident, it's a child. And by giving this book, I hope people will feel understood and feel that those around them really love them.
How should people react around those who've lost a baby?
I think try not to make them feel better. Allow them to feel exactly what they are feeling. So often I think as family and friends around people who are suffering, we want to take it all away. And that's human nature, to want to make someone feel better. But actually with loss and bereavement, you can't make them feel better. And what people need is permission to grieve. It's allowing them to say it's okay to feel exactly what you're feeling right now. And try not to give them platitudes. Try not to say everything will be okay at the time of when they're in desperate need. Just say, I know it's utterly rubbish. It's painful. It's agony. And I might not know what you're going through, but I'll sit with you. I'll give you a shoulder to cry on, because that's what people need when they're going through that bereavement. And then, of course, later on, they need the encouragement to get back into the world, but not in any way making them feel bad for still suffering, because bereavement and the loss of a child is a lifelong thing. It's not something you will ever get over. It's something that becomes part of you and it transforms you into a new person. So instead of encouraging people to be who they were, let's try and help people be the new person that they are now, carrying this forever.
But it's not that easy, is it? I mean, how do you encourage people to be positive after they've lost a baby?
I think it's a natural thing that happens, actually. So by encouraging people to not fight the grieving process, to go with it, and encouraging them to keep talking about their story, because how the brain deals with trauma is by communication, and the more you talk about it, the more the brain heals and accepts what's happened. So encouraging people to keep talking helps them get better naturally, helps their heart heal, and helps them re-find their joy. By encouraging people to keep it squished down, to not face it, to just put it in a box, actually does the exact opposite and makes them stay in that point of real loss and real heartache forever. So by encouraging people to talk and encouraging people to just be them and to accept that how they are now won't be how they are forever, but they'll keep transforming. Grief is like waves of the ocean. It comes and hits you and throws you off balance. And that might happen for life. But if people know that's normal, they can just live with it and they can accept it. And that's how you re-find your joy, by not trying to fight to be who you were, and by knowing you're accepted and you are not thought badly of for actually expressing your pain.
And you have refound your joy, haven't you?
Absolutely. I'd say I'm happier today than I ever was before losing 5 children. Now, if you told me that when I was sobbing on my bathroom floor, I would have definitely gone, not only do I not believe it, I don't want to hear it, because I needed to be in that place of pain at that time. But now I can honestly say I love life so much more. I see colour in brighter colours than I ever did before, because I know the fragility of life. I know how one moment everything can be okay, and the next moment the trapdoor can open and you can fall, and life can suddenly change in the blink of an eye. But by knowing that, I embrace everything and I enjoy life and I welcome all new experience. And I'm pretty fearless with a lot of things as well, where before I may have been more scared and more frightened of things. Now I always think there's nothing worse than losing a child, so get out there and do it. So I definitely feel more joy than I ever felt before, and I know that's possible for anybody who wants that. Some people, they don't want that. They want to stay in that place, and that's actually okay, because everybody's story is their own story. But for those who want to re-find their joy, I want to assure them it's possible.
Now, the charity's become hugely successful and continues to grow, doesn't it? Why has it become so successful so quickly?
I think because it's led by people who have been there. I think that makes the world of difference to people who are reaching out for support. To know the CEOs have personally gone through that loss does make a dramatic difference, because when you can't find the words to express your pain, you want to know you can just go to an organisation and go, I don't know what to say, and not to feel stupid. And they'll never be made to feel stupid within the Mariposa Trust at saying goodbye. They'll be made to feel that's okay and that's normal, and you don't need to find the words. We get it. We understand. So I think that's why the charity was so well received. And I think because we're a charity of integrity, that we walk the walk, and we don't just say we want to do this but don't follow through on it. We really action change. So we're stakeholders within the Department of Health. We are influencers within the health organisation worldwide now, in trying to make things better. So we don't just offer support, we say let's try and change the lack of support that's there. If we see an issue with how care is provided, we say let's try and change that. So if we can prevent any pain, we will. So it's not just trying to pick up the pieces, we want to help people be less broken in the first place. So I think that's what's made us stand out amongst the rest. But also everybody who works for the organisation, all 240 people who work with us, are equally as passionate. So it's not just me and Andy, it's the whole team who love what they do, who are passionate about making a difference. And I think that is really obvious to people who need support.
It's quite a weight of responsibility on you, isn't there? You're CEO of this growing charity, as we've discussed, and you've also become a spokesman for all these bereaved people. It's a big pressure on you. How do you cope with that?
Well, for me, I don't see it as a pressure really. I see it as an honour. I love speaking for people who may not have a voice or may feel that they're not in a position to be heard. To me, that's a real honour and a privilege. So yes, it's a weighty responsibility to run an organisation of this size, but I do see it as a true honour and a gift to be able to speak for so many people and to make such a difference. And I always see the fact that we're doing it for one. So yes, we're supporting thousands of people a week, but I really look at the one person we're helping. To me, everything I do today is for the 700 people who are losing their babies today, because 700 people in the UK will lose their babies today. 250,000 are lost through miscarriage every year in the UK, 1 million every year in America. That's a lot of people, and that's a big number, and almost too big a number to be able to focus on. So our focus is on the people who lose their babies today and the one person who feels that they can't carry on living today because they're just being told the news that they've lost their baby. That's the person I do it for today, and that's how I don't feel overwhelmed by it.
And you have a bill going through the House of Lords right now. What are you hoping to achieve from that?
Well, we actually got approached by the House of Lords some time ago by different people within it to say the fact that they'd love to support any bills that we might want to do because of the influence of the charity. So that started us thinking of what needed to be done, what would really benefit the wider community. And we listened to the people that we were supporting, and we also looked at what we needed as a couple. And one thing we struggled with, there was the lack of recognition of our babies that we'd lost. The fact that they never existed on paper. They existed on our medical notes, but because they were lost before that 24-week mark, they weren't given birth or death certificates. They weren't given a stillborn certificate. And for us, that was hard. And we know it's hard for so many people every single year. And we hear horrendous stories where people have lost twins before 24 weeks. And we hear this quite often now, where one of their babies was born breathing, and so it was given a certificate, but the other baby wasn't born breathing, so it wasn't given any recognition at all. So they have to go to the registry office, they have to register the fact that they had one baby, and their twin sibling is never even recognised, it's never even acknowledged. And that made us realise more than ever that we need something new. We need a new certificate. The government have said for a long time that they won't be able to change the fact of bringing down birth and death certificates. And we understand that's tied up with so much legislation and so many regulations. So we've said, okay, well, what can we do? Can we make something different? And as an organisation, we totally believe we can. We are trying to introduce a new national loss certificate that any parent can request as soon as they've had a confirmed pregnancy, that they will be able to apply for this new certificate, and it will give them that piece of paper and it will show their baby existed. And we conducted polls as an organisation, and without fail, on all of the polls that we've run, is that people want this, and they say it will make a massive difference to them, just so they've got something in their family file at home to give to siblings if they have other children, or just for other generations to say my baby existed, not just on my medical records that will die with me, but for generations to come. So that's what this bill is about. And we're very excited about it, and we're so delighted to have so much support from the House of Lords and the wider community as well, as it's progressing through to hopefully become a new law. And I'll really feel we've achieved something good when it gets passed. Because I say when, because I totally believe it's a when, not an if.
So what's coming next?
Well, so much. The services are obviously being rolled out worldwide. There's always going to be new laws and new acts we want to see. We want to see big changes within the NHS and the Department of Health in how care is provided. We want to see a first-class treatment across every single hospital without fail. We don't want people to be asked the questions we were asked and people are asked every day of why they feel like they feel after losing a baby. We want it to become standard. Of course they would feel that, and so they don't have to fight for recognition, so they can focus on grieving the child that they've lost and not having to fight for the recognition. That's what we want to see, that it becomes a given that of course they feel that way, and it's okay if they want to mourn, but it's also okay if they don't want to mourn, because for some people they don't need time to grieve, and that's okay. We just want people to get what they need, and that's what we're fighting for as an organisation.
Zoe, thank you.
Thank you.